Hi, I'm Patricia Greenberg. Well, joining us today is Maia Royal, and he's the co-founder of the Pure Food Company. It's an innovative and brilliant approach to food service that specializes in care facilities, and it really is changing the way that we see hospital food, and also the positive effects it has on meeting the needs of older adults. You're not only going to love what you see and hear today, but you're going to have a newfound respect for what's being served in these care facilities. Welcome, Maya.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you for having me.
Now, this is an amazing venture that speaks so personally to me as a nutritionist and an advocate for older adults. But first off, tell us your story about how Pure Foods was founded.
So we founded Pure Food 10 years ago after my co-founder, who's been a longtime friend of mine, after his stepfather really struggled with an illness, cancer, oral cancer, which made it almost impossible for him to eat, and therefore he wasn't able to get the nutrition and the strength he needed to fight that illness. Now, thankfully, he survived, but that experience kind of highlighted a real need for people not living with illnesses like cancer. But we saw a need even beyond illnesses like cancer, particularly with things like dementia or someone who's had a stroke, all make it difficult for somebody to eat good food and makes it harder for them to live quality lives.
The something that comes up a lot with nutrition and older adults, and what's interesting is that even healthy older adults, there are changes. I mean, the people don't realize how easily you can get into nutrient deficit over 65 even. So we talk a lot about the protein deficit, and the reason I bring that up is you even shared the science is that older people require almost twice as much protein as an elite athletes, and they're getting as little as 60% of what they need. That is so critical, like you mentioned in your paperwork, losing weight, losing muscle mass, susceptibility to illness, susceptibility to falling. And what that does is it takes away your freedom. So like I said, we see this in people who aren't even in particularly frail health. So it's that much more important for someone who is to get the best nutrition that they possibly can. So it's amazing that this is put together.
It actually starts when you're 50, and you'll know this as a dietitian that you start losing your muscle mass when you're 50.
Yeah.
So your protein requirements start increasing when you hit 50. But if I think about my parents and my parents-in-law as well, you become worried about putting on weight. So you start eating less
Mhm.
protein. What that over time, that leads to muscle loss, muscle mass loss. And by the time you get to elderly age, that creates real issues with your health. Osteoporosis makes you're not as strong, so falls are more common. Your bones are not as strong, so you're more likely to have break your bones. Your immunity is a lot weaker, which leads to more illness.
Yeah, and then of course it's like we want the food to be palatable and interesting and amazing, right? So, and I know there's a lot of confusion now about why the texture of food needs to be altered for patients, especially in advanced stages of dementia, as well as other conditions that may affect swallowing, digestion, taste acuity, and appetite for sure. What you're mentioning is a self-imposed diet or people just eating less because they don't feel like it. So, how did you and your team address these needs to develop these foods?
Well, neither Sam nor I had a background in food or healthcare, so we had to learn on the job and we had to hire the best experts. It's great that you've got both the chef background and a dietitian background because you've got the knowledge across
Yes.
both. And sometimes they challenge each other. It's a bit of
Mhm.
a battle. In New Zealand, there's a show called Good Chef, Bad Chef, and the good chef is a dietitian, and she's really fighting for better health, so better nutrition, and the bad chef is fighting for the flavors, the colors, the vibrancy. And that's what we really had to go through in our development. We had dietitians and speech language therapists who were fighting for the health side of the food, but we also had chefs and food scientists fighting for the flavors and the colors and things like that. But ultimately, it came down to the person who was eating it, and they were our best and sometimes our harshest judges. Even when they weren't vocal, they were able to tell us whether they liked it or not. A smile or someone spitting it out, that's enough to tell us whether the food is enjoyed or not. And the number one result that we look for is clean plates. If somebody finishes their plate, that tells us that they've enjoyed the meal.
You obviously have your lab and your research and development people putting this all together, and then you have to build the actual composition of the food, put it together, and put it into big scale food service quantity and
Yep.
quality. So, how is that process for you of putting together? Uh, you did everything on your own, or did you contract out to other food service companies that already prepare food?
So we started in a lab at a university, Massey University in Auckland in New Zealand, with the dietitians, speech language therapists, chefs,
Your
and
team.
food. Did it on a small scale, got the feedback from the customer. Then we were lucky enough in New Zealand, there's an organization called Food Bowl, which is basically a factory you can rent on a daily basis,
Oh,
which allowed us to therefore scale up and provide some of our first customers with our products. And our first customers were some of the biggest hospitals in New Zealand. And then after a few years, when we were confident that we were meeting a need, we took the big leap of building our own factory. So now in Auckland, we've got this huge brand new factory, which is specifically built for our solution. So we designed it exactly how we wanted, how we needed it, so that it's really safe in terms of food hygiene, but also in terms of texture. The nutrition's really precise. The packaging is fully traceable. Yeah, so that's where we're at in New Zealand. We've got a big factory. You're welcome to come and see it if you come to New Zealand.
okay.
That's got the capacity to supply New Zealand and Australia. In France, we're almost starting again. Again, we found a small lab to do it on a bench top scale, and then we've found a factory where we can do a bit more volume. We're in a pilot R&D phase at the moment, but we're very close to moving towards building our own big factory in France, which will be our factory to supply the rest of Europe.
So I'm almost laughing that you're going to France to propose food in a texture that's palatable for older people. You're going to the culinary capital of the world. And how has that been received so far by the powers that be in care facilities in France?
So yeah, everybody asks us this question, why France? In New Zealand, we're in a really strong position. We're supplying every public hospital, 4 out of 5 nursing homes in New Zealand. We then jumped over to Australia, which next step being our neighbour. We're already within a few years supplying 1 in 5 nursing homes there, having a similar impact as we are in New Zealand, where we've seen reduced weight loss, fewer falls, less time in hospital, which ultimately means less healthcare costs. We looked around the world. We did look at your home country of the United States and also the United Kingdom, which are natural next markets for a New Zealand company, being Anglo-Saxon and English speaking. We went towards the European market just because of the strong investment in healthcare. Which is what you'd expect, more socialist countries, there's going to be more investment in healthcare. So that pointed us to Europe, aging populations as well. France and Germany are going to be the oldest countries in the world in the next decades. And so, but we decided on France because France was a food nation. If we were able to deliver food that met the expectations of France, which has such a high bar, that would give us a lot of confidence. So that was part of the reason. The other reason is because France has really large healthcare organizations, some of them that we're already working with now. So it had a lot of scale. But yeah, the number one reason was the standard of food in France is really high. So we meet that bar, then we're really succeeding. So we came over here. We didn't bring our New Zealand recipes or Australian recipes. French people wouldn't put up with that. We developed it from scratch. So we've got recipes like beef boeuf bourguignon, blanquette de veau, basquet. So it's all French recipes made by a Michelin star chef down in the Centre-Val de Loire in the middle of France. And yeah, so far it's been received really well. The feedback from the residents is really positive, especially from those with cognitive issues like dementia. The colors of the foods, the flavors of the foods, and the shapes of our foods make it really appealing for them to eat. So the nurses are telling us that they're eating a lot more, which means that they're putting on more weight, which ultimately leads to better health outcomes for them. So yeah, so far the reception in France has been really positive. Felt really welcomed by France, and yeah, we're making really good progress here.
It's so fantastic. And I want to share with all of you when I met Maya at the Silver Economy International Festival in Cannes, France, just a few weeks ago in this past September. And I want to share with you that I served as a judge in the health sector, and we awarded Pure Foods with the honorable mention for innovative health products for 2024. I taste tested a sample of the Pure Foods, and as a chef, nutritionist, and a food critic, I found the taste amazing. I'm Maya, your model is brilliant, I have to tell you. And we're gonna post some pictures for you here in the show to take a look at. You know, palatability plays a huge role in how we eat. And it was fantastic. I ate the croissant, the carrots, the asparagus, and I think you had a pork terrine. And it looked beautiful. I again, I want to be, a happy customer. I want to share with everybody that what's very important in dementia patients and also just patients who feel marginalized because they're in a hospital and they can't get the good food. The shape and the look and the texture, even though it is designed to be beneficial for people who can't eat well, the look is fantastic. The eye appeal is amazing. So I did want to give you a shout out, Maya, that, when we were there, that was how I felt about it. So tell us, how did you get the texture, the taste, and the colors just right?
Yeah, if you get just touching on what you mentioned there, if you
Yeah.
can share one of the photos of
Yes.
before,
Mhm.
um, that was our inspiration when Sam's stepfather, and that was the photo that I shared with you was a photo from his grandfather's nursing home. When food doesn't look great, you eat with your eyes, you're obviously not going to eat as much, and that affects your health because you're not getting the nutrition. But also in that photo, there's some risk there. If there's lumps and somebody has dysphagia, they can choke, which can be fatal. There's liquid on the plate, and if there's liquid, it can get into their lungs, which leads to aspiration and pneumonia, which is often undiagnosed. So there was some real risk there, but it was quite obvious when you see a photo like that, uh, the appearance, the general appeal of the food had to improve. So that was our number one. So how did we get that all working together? As I said before, it's a real battle between the health experts and the food experts. And we spent over 3 years developing the innovation. I personally spent hours and hours inside nursing homes testing different things on a benchtop scale, actually going inside, seeing how it works, because it's one thing that has to taste great and it has to work for the people eating the food, but it also has to work for the healthcare organization
Yes,
because
absolutely. Hmm.
they are under a lot of pressure. People can criticize them. If you share the photo, people will say, oh, how can they serve that? But they're under pressure. They've got budgets. Those budgets aren't going to get any bigger because the population and the demand for healthcare services is growing, and the number of people that can provide those services is decreasing. Also, the number of people paying taxes to provide funding for those services is decreasing. So we need to support them, and that was our part of our innovation as well. Not just providing great food to the people consuming it, but also supporting the healthcare organisations because they're doing an amazing job with the little resources that they have. So half of our innovation was how do we make it easy for them? How do we provide them with the training on dysphagia and nutrition? How do we provide them with reports to show them that the impact that our food is having not just on their health, but on their organization to help them manage their budgets so they're not overspending and running out of money. So, yeah, it was a real challenge. It's been 10 years, but that 10 years is really starting to pay off now. There's been some hard times, but it's all made up for when you hear some great stories from the people that you're looking after, including a handwritten note. My co-founder Sam shared on LinkedIn recently. We got a note from a lady at a nursing home, handwritten, saying that it's changed her life. So getting stories like that is pretty motivating and keeps us going in the hard times.
Amazing, amazing. And that was the other question. So the cooking and preparation, you have as much done for them as possible. So when it gets to the facility, is it just a question of reheating? Um,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
right. My mum was a nurse, still is a nurse. She's been a nurse since she was for 50 years. And one thing that she always told me, it's like running on a treadmill. She also worked in nursing homes, and it's just you constantly having things to do, and you're not having enough time to do what she was meant to do, which is look after and care for people. And that's why she became a nurse. And so we make things as easy as possible, not to take away jobs. That's not what our goal is, to take away jobs, because there's always going to be more and more need for people in healthcare. It's to give them some time so that they can spend time with focusing on what they do best, which is caring for the people that they care for.
It's so heartwarming to hear that you had feedback actually from the patients and not just in the care facilities. Maya, is this something you see as a possibility, if I'm not jumping ahead too far, to go into the to supermarkets and into the public sector of providing that we all have family members that may be headed in this direction, but they are being cared for at home?
It is. It is on our innovation roadmap. Our
Mm.
vision is to nourish the world's seniors, and we decided early on to focus on those who needed the most care, and that are
Okay.
most likely to be in a hospital or a nursing home setting. So that's our focus at the moment. New Zealand, Australia, and France, and later Europe. But already in New Zealand, they're working on innovations for people before they get into care, because that's actually the best solution to support our healthcare system is to keep people out of the healthcare system. And as I mentioned earlier, it actually starts when you're 50. So when you're 50, you need to start increasing your protein intake. People start eating less. So that ultimately leads 20, 30 years later to some of the health issues that people have, such as osteoporosis and the like. So yes, we are developing some products. We have some smoothies, and rather than being milk-based flavored milks that you commonly get when you're unwell, they are fruit-based. So we've got a mango, blueberry, peach, and strawberry, and that's currently being consumed in nursing homes, but the intention is later on to make that available to I think of it as my parents' generation. They're asking for it. They're saying, when is it available? I'd like to have a high protein drink something that's really convenient. But we're also working on some snacking innovations as well, which again can be consumed in home, gives you a boost of protein, which, yeah, as you said, the solution, we're looking after people when they're already in the healthcare system. The longer term solution is actually how do we keep them out of the healthcare system for longer? And that starts much, much earlier.
Yeah, so I want to mention, and we're going to post the pictures for you here on the show, is that the nutrient density is fantastic, the portion size is fantastic, the palatability and the eye appeal. I mean, you hit every aspect of what we need to eat well and feel good about what we're eating. Now, did you have to follow guidelines of nutrient density from the facilities? Was there? I know airlines, hospitals, care facilities, and other institutional, they have parameters. Was that difficult to fall into?
They were quite clear. As I said, we work really closely with
Yes,
dietitians. They're the reason why we've succeeded.
yes.
they helped us develop our product. And once we had developed the product, they basically told the hospital they had to use our product. So we're forever thankful for dietitians and speech language therapists. But there are clear guidelines. When somebody is malnourished, they need 1.5 grams of protein per kg of body weight, and 40 calories per kg of body weight. When you're not malnourished, but you're still high need, acute need on a, say, a texture modified diet, your needs are 1.2 grams per kg, or 30 calories. So we designed for that, and we also knew that every spoon or every mouthful counted. So we
Yes.
didn't just enrich the proteins with protein, we also enriched our vegetables. So, for example, our broccoli has 3 to 4 times as much protein as a normal broccoli, so that every mouthful you're getting that extra bit of nutrient.
That's fantastic. Maya, I want to just divert a little bit. I know that we always do a little Q&A before the show, so you're prepared. Can you tell us a little bit about your culture and its attitude towards the elders? Because it's something that not just with food, but with everything. What your your system is brilliant. But it also plays a role, I think, in nurturing the person. You really, really care about how they're going to respond. You're not just saying we're putting orange and green and purple on your plate because colorful food is good for you. This is so well thought out. So tell us a little bit, if you can, about your background and your personal sensitivity towards caring for older people.
So I guess my background comes from my parents. My mum, as I said, has been a nurse for 50 years. She's always been a caring person. My father has always been a social worker, looking after underprivileged people. So that's kind of my background that I was raised with. I was also raised with Māori culture, which is native to New Zealand, where there's a deep respect for people, but especially elders. The term for elderly is called kaumatua, and to be considered a kaumatua is a sign of respect. I think in some other cultures, to be called elderly can be offensive.
Hmm.
It's not a well-respected title, whereas in Māori culture, it is well-respected because um, you've given your life for everything that we have today. So there's a deep respect for everything that they've done before, where sometimes in other cultures, I do feel like we think of them as a burden. They're no longer working, they're no longer paying taxes, they're costing us in terms of healthcare, so they're considered a burden, which I think is wrong. When somebody's given their whole life, they've paid taxes their whole life, they're basically, we're standing on their shoulders. If you think about World War II, it's all because of our elders. So they deserve utmost respect and dignity. And yeah, that's our vision and our mission of Pure Food, is to make sure that we protect and nourish them as best as we can.
I want to, you're a young man relative to me, but in closing, I want to ask you, what do you like about getting older?
What do I like about getting older? I think I'm in the thick of growing a business, so sometimes you don't often think
Yeah.
about it. But quite recently, actually, before I moved to France, one of the last weekends we had was at our marae, which is part of Māori culture, is the Māori community come together in a marae, and I was sitting there on the marae, out looking out. To the fields that look out to the sea, which is where I used to run out when I was younger with my cousins and had lots of fun there. This time I've got children, a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old, and to see them running off and doing the same things that I did when I was their age, that was pretty cool. So yeah, being Māori and knowing that in Māori culture that our elders are respected, I don't have worries. In fact, it's something that to look forward to. I can imagine myself sitting there in this exact same place and seeing my children's children doing the same thing, and maybe even my children's children doing the same thing at some point. So yeah, that's what I look forward to when I get older is yeah, watching the younger generations do the same things that I've done.
Well, it's a beautiful sentiment, and your parents are tremendous role models, and you are a tremendous role model. So rarely do we see young people caring that much for the health and wellness, both physically, emotionally, and mentally, spiritually of older adults. So thank you so much, for what you're doing, Mr. Maia Royal. And thank you for joining us and sharing such valuable information to our listeners. To get in touch with this company and learn more about what the Pure Food Company does, you can go to www.thepurefoodco.com, and we will post that on the show when it's up. And in closing, I want to thank all of you for listening to Age Well. Please subscribe to my channel, Patricia Greenberg, for our engaging discussions on all things aging well. And for feedback and topic requests, you can contact me at www.patriciagreenberg.com. Maia, thank you again so much for joining us. It's been very insightful and lovely having you.
No, thank you, and thank you for having me.